So I kind of live by these three mantras that I always, one is Donald Barthelme says the writer is that person who embarking on her task does not know what to do. Gerald Stern says if you start out to write a poem about two dogs fucking and you write a poem about two dogs fucking, then you wrote a poem about two dogs fucking. And then Einstein completes that little troika by saying no worthy problem is ever solved in the plane of its original conception. Oh, I remember, when I was in engineering school, and first of all my reading time was stolen time. I wasn't supposed to be reading fiction. And going out to this river in Golden, Colorado with a little old, one of those ancient tiny copies of De Maupassant, and just sitting there and thinking, I would give anything to have written one of these stories. Sometimes, when at the end of a semester when I'm done teaching and I get to go back to writing full time, that feeling comes back like in full flower. Just to write one good story in this life would be, great. When I was younger, I had some books that were very heavily laden with concept and intention that just died on the operating table. I was living in an upstate New York town that had a kind of an old 1850s feeling, beautiful graveyard. And at that time, chat lines were just coming into vogue, and I loved the way they looked on the page. You'd have an identifier and some rambling, incoherent, misspelled text and an interruption and so on. So I thought, oh, that'd be cool. We have a graveyard full of ghosts, kind of in a chat line from beyond the grave, Started doing, I had about 80 pages, I think, and it was kind of good. It was lively, but I didn't have any through line. And after a while, it just sort of sagged under its own weight, and I just put it aside. Later, I had this Lincoln idea in mind, and I couldn't think of a way to make it prose. So I thought, oh, I'll write a play, I don't know, it was self-consciously theatrical in a way that didn't seem to produce good writing. And if I worked on it for 4 or 5 days, I could convince myself that it was good, and then I'd work on it for another 2 weeks. And then if I put it away and came back to it, I'd just say, oh God, this is terrible. It's embarrassing, So at one point, I did an end of the year wrap up, and I actually wrote across a piece of paper that says, please stay away from this. Don't touch, like that. My friend Deborah Treisman, who's a fiction editor at The New Yorker, she said, well, very simply, why don't you write it in prose? I thought, oh, she thinks I can do it, then I can. And then those two other books showed up. So to me, this is a kind of a good lesson that if you, I think if you've worked long enough and earnestly enough, there actually aren't any mistakes in writing. The amateur solution is to go, I'm an idiot, I should have, had a different career. But I think the kind of artistic solution is to say, this is my story trying to communicate something to me. I'm not being a very good listener. As writers, we're always trying to game ourselves in some way. Who knows what's true about art? Nobody. But what we're looking for is a metaphor or a model that helps us work fearlessly. So for me, this idea that the story is perfect, you don't have any problems there, but you're a sort of a clumsy conveyance device, that's okay. When you drop it, pick it up, and the sort of magic antidote always is labor. You work, and in time, your natural, kind of human stupidity will cave in, and this artistic vastness will come in to help you out. That's the model anyway.